you can lock in 30 days of any NBA or college basketball plays, including 5% best bets released from your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper for just $6.63 per day. A 30-day NBA pass is priced at $189 and a 30-day college basketball pass at $189. But you can get both for only $199. To take advantage of this special offer, just go to WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Choose your favorite handicapper and lock in all basketball action for the next 30 days. Even better, there's no limit to how many handicappers this offer can be redeemed on.
Welcome back. WagerTalk Today, Thursday, January 7th, 2021. And I am still Steve Merrill, your guest host for this week, as the Prez remains on location, on assignment, parts unknown. But the word on the street, Teddy, is that he is recharging his batteries. He is coming back sassier than ever. So your working vacation and our producer, Joe Ranieri's working vacations are coming to a quick end next Monday. So I hope you're enjoying your time off while working this week. But that is Teddy Covers, Ted Travansky. Great to have you, as always, on my side. And we got a good show here. We always have a good show. And yesterday we were jam-packed. Boy, did we rush through Wednesday's show. And we got more into 45 minutes less like yesterday afternoon than I think we could possibly have done. And we're going to try to do it again because we've got Dave Cokin coming up. Going to look at that national championship game between Alabama and Ohio State in a few minutes. We've also got Gianni the Greek Ace, Vegas runner. When you have that many nicknames, you know something. And he's the #1 return on investment for 2020 at WagerTalk.com. And guess what? We're 6 days in, and he's #1 already, 2021. Gianni the Greek will be back in about a half hour with us to look at the NFL playoff games. Teddy also has that world-famous big game breakdown as well coming up. But Teddy, as I said, we have so much information. We jam-pack it into about 45 minutes. We were debating on what the lead story should be, and since we couldn't decide, we said, hell, let's do both of them. So which one do you want to start with, Ted Covers?
Well, politics. I mean, yesterday was a unique day in U.S. history. And it's worth talking about the betting markets and some of the issues. There was talk yesterday that Trump was going to get impeached, that they were going to invoke the 25th Amendment. And then all of a sudden, all of those wagers on who's the next president going to be become very much in question. If all of a sudden you have a Mike Pence coming in before Joe Biden. Now, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case today, but for a few moments, even for a few hours in the betting markets yesterday, there was some legitimate chaos and some legitimate questions about a wager that in theory was already decided, whether it was actually decided or not. But at the same time, the markets didn't move. We didn't see a bunch of money come in. So maybe it was more discussion than actual betting market implications. But yesterday's results in Washington, D.C., or yesterday's circumstance in Washington, D.C., had the potential to have enormous ramifications in the betting markets.
You know what, Teddy? That's fascinating. And Teddy and I both have government backgrounds, poli-sci, whatever you want to call it, back in the 90s. So we do follow this probably a little closer than the average sports bettor does. We have kind of a government political side as well. And, for the last couple months, since the Electoral College voted, since yesterday when Georgia was decided, I kept seeing 93, 94% Biden next president. And I just couldn't understand why that wasn't moving more. And I never made that connection, Teddy, that it was next president, meaning it could be before January 20th. And that's exactly what that difference was. I'm so glad you pointed that out because that explains things now. What did really move yesterday in the betting markets, and we're talking, by the way, European betting markets, because in the U.S., the sports books don't take this action. So we're talking about the overseas English European betting markets, the legal markets. And as Ted's talked about on the show this year, more volume than we've ever seen on Super Bowls, any other big event. So this is some serious money. And they've had odds all along, will Trump be out? It was as low as in the 50s a year or two ago with the impeachment talk. It was 96% 2 days ago. It was 95% yesterday morning. And it quickly went to about 85, 86% yesterday. Will he finish his full term? So that's exactly what was moving yesterday more than anything for the reasons you were talking about. And it's now back up to 88%. So it's still lower than it was a couple of days ago. But yeah, a lot of craziness. And it goes back to what I always use, the analogy I use is the national anthem prop with the Super Bowl. You got to read between the lines. Is that when they say home of the brave the first time or when they hold the final note. And this is one of the reasons a lot of American sports books, Teddy, don't have action on these bets.
Well, yeah, I mean, a prop like the national anthem, you'll only find action in faraway places. That's a global marketplace thing. You won't find that, at any casino in Las Vegas because there's no official grade for it. When you're talking about political betting, it can get officially graded. Whoever the next president is, that becomes the official grade. There's not grading issues. And that's why the props in Vegas are all based on the box score, something you can quantify, and it's always very clear, in terms of who's going to score what or the over-unders on the various players and all of that. It's all quantifiable officially, whereas the national anthem is some guy with a stopwatch and was that 155 and a half or was that 156 and a half? And there's been, with the national anthem in particular, there's been a bunch of times where there's been controversy of when the national anthem actually ended and did it go over or under. And you don't have that in Vegas books. So when we're talking about the predictive market for the next presidential election, again, that's not something you can bet on legally in the U.S. So it's all in the global offshore world, which ensures that if there's questions or controversies, the answers may not be what you want them to be, as opposed to with the legal regulated U.S. books. When there are questions, there's a way to adjunct those questions, to address those questions in a formal manner. That's not the case, obviously, in the offshore world.
And one final takeaway for me, though, is you read between the lines because the wording is different. It could have been who is the next president for, who was the president after January 21st, 2021 was the wording for some of them. Who is the next president is a very vague term. And I did not realize, never thought about it till literally 5 minutes ago as we're talking about this, that could have meant Trump leaving early, Pence coming in, and he technically would be the next president. And that's been that different. That's why Biden's only been 93% for the past month. I couldn't figure out where that 6 or 7% uncertainty was coming from. I understood the electoral challenges, but I thought that wasn't 7% uncertainty. I thought that was maybe 1%. So fascinating.
Yeah. So
Ted, we're going to. No, go ahead.
Let's just last thought on it, and then we'll move on. Dave Cokin, almost ready to join us. But the other potential reason for that, 6-7%, who's the next president going to be? There have been questions about Joe Biden's health and Joe Biden's ability to assume the presidency.
True.
And I think some of that, 1% of it, 2% of it, may have been the Biden end of the equation. The other is what's going to happen with Trump after, in that transition period. Will he melt down and lose the presidency thereof? That was probably the other 4 or 5% in that mix. But interesting scenario in the betting markets when it comes to politics. When it comes to football, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, what's great though is the markets are the markets, and the money speaks in both the presidential markets and the money speaks in the college football betting markets. And as we talked about yesterday and the day before, really in our lead story, 2 days in a row, we've mentioned the Ohio State game. 2 days ago on Tuesday, our lead story was that the line was dropping from 8 down to 7.5. Our semi-lead story yesterday after the Browns' COVID issues was Ohio State's issues and the line going back to 8. Total remains 75, though that total is yet to move in either the Browns or Ohio State game. So let's bring in Dave Cokin and get his take on this whole thing and how the line is going to settle and which way the public might be. Dave, welcome to the show. Before we get to the game, though, got to ask you how your 2021's been going. I haven't had a chance to talk to you.
Well, the football's been college football is just phenomenal down the stretch. I think I'm either 11-1 or 12-1 on my last bunch of plays. Ended up my 4-year complete record now at WagerTalk is 201 and 129, which is just a little over 60% on 330 plays. So I think that's pretty good. And the basketball, we're just kind of going back and forth. Last night was good. Hopefully tonight will be just as good. Set for this weekend, but as far as this title game goes, boy, I mean, this is difficult because I don't know who's going to be playing for Ohio State at this point. And I think that's really got to be something that, you want to get something out there early if you can to capitalize on what you think might be the best number. But without really good information, it's very difficult to do that. So I'm still sitting around and waiting on this, but we can talk about the game anyway. and maybe get some ideas on what might take place on Monday.
Well, let me ask
Dave,
you this.
Teddy, Teddy, let me ask you real quick. If Dave hasn't put a play out yet, that means this game will be played on Monday, correct? Because when he releases games this year, they often get canceled. But anyway, Ted, I had to get that in.
Well, yeah. So, and I'm with you, Dave, in that I haven't put out a play on the game yet. I haven't made a bet on the national championship game yet. And I too ran pretty good. Not as good as you, man. That's a heck of a run down the stretch. And a phenomenal long-term track record in college football. You know, Dave, I was introduced to you 20 years ago when you were doing the Stardust line on Sunday nights. And I remember some of the football seasons you had, giving out 3 plays a week before the games. And you were doing, you did a 70% season. You did multiple 70% seasons. So no question, college football, an area of expertise that you have had for many, many years. And you're someone whose opinion, I don't respect everyone's opinion. I respect your opinion tremendously.
Thank you.
When it comes to this matchup, I'm having problems with the matchup itself. Alabama's not a team I have a whole lot of interest in stepping in front of. All right. They look to me to be as good or better than any of the recent Alabama teams that have won national titles. At the same time, we saw this Buckeyes program, and again, it was a different circumstance, but it was most assuredly an Ohio State team that was devalued in the marketplace when Cardell Jones was behind center. And next thing you know, back-to-back upsets to win a national title. And I made a bunch of money off of that. Can I make a bunch of money with Ohio State here in a money line scenario? Or is Alabama just too strong to step in front of? It's a hard handicap for me. I'm curious about your take.
I would not take Ohio State money line. I just don't think it's worth it. I think Alabama's going to win the game. But the points are another story. I don't necessarily see this as an easy win for Alabama. And again, this goes back to an old philosophy of mine. It has been basically the hallmark of what I do in college football going back 40 years. It's still a game. I don't care how fancy they get with passing games and how wide open they get. It is still a game that is won and lost in the trenches. And Ohio State's really good in the trenches. How do you know that? You go to the rushing stats. And this goes back 40 years. If you find teams, especially this late in the season, that have a 2-to-1 or better rushing ratio, offense to defense, you do not want to lay points against those teams. They are tremendous performers as underdogs. And Ohio State does fit that here. That doesn't mean that I want to run to the window on Ohio State, unfortunately. I don't think I'm going to go against them as far as the point spread's concerned, but I'm not in love with taking them because Alabama's probably better now than they were a week ago because now Waddle's going to be able to play. And, just what they need is a guy who might actually be the best player on the entire team now being cleared to play. It's scary how good this team is, and they might just wear Ohio State down with that incredible offense over 4 quarters. The total, and I'm not a totals guy, but I really think this game's got a pretty good chance to get into the 80s. I think Ohio State's going to do some scoring. I know Alabama's going to do some scoring. It really could be first team to 45 wins. Now, there's not a lot of value as far as the totals is concerned because it opened, 71 or 70 and a half, something like that. And it's going up. And that opener I'm using was Penny's opener. I have a tendency to look at theirs first because I think it's just a really solid book. It did open higher some other places. Value be damned, though. I mean, in playoff games, I don't think you go value. In the NFL, I don't go value in the playoff games. I handicap the matchups and just go from there. It's not like the regular season. Same story here. If you think it's going to be high scoring, that's the way you play it. I think over could ultimately be where I land on this game.
Yeah, Dave, I was with you with the over, or as far as a high-scoring game, I was on a high-scoring game with Ohio State Clemson. That was my 5%er in all the bowl games. And obviously didn't have to sweat that one as they added the 28 points early. But, that one was 66, 67. I mean, this one is pricey at 75. And keep in mind, even with that shootout against Clemson, Ohio State, it only totaled 77 still. It really, but there was a double-digit lead there for most of the second half.
Right.
What I want to ask you, though, I was going to ask you about the total because what's making this difficult for me is which Ohio State defense do we have? Is it the one that looks so terrible those first few weeks of the regular season really couldn't stop anybody? Or is it a team that's starting maybe to come into form? Obviously slowing down Northwestern's not that impressive. They're not a good offensive team. Michigan State as well. But other than the fast start for Clemson, you can make a case that Ohio State kind of held them in check the rest of that game. That's what's tough for me is, what stats are you using for Ohio State? Because I think they probably are playing better now defensively than their overall seasonal numbers for 7 games would indicate.
Well, the problem is, can you use stats with any college football team against Alabama? Because that is a pro offense. It just is. I know it sounds ridiculous, but basically, I mean, how many first-round draft choices do they have on this offense? These are guys who are going to be stars in the NFL. They've got 1 at running back. They've got 2 at wide receiver. The quarterback is not at that level. And in fact, honestly, I think he should go back for another year. I actually don't think he should declare for the NFL draft. I know you can get injured and stuff like that, but he's got some improvement to do, particularly with his footwork. And right now, I wouldn't make Jones more than maybe a 4th or 5th round draft choice, and I don't think he'll go much higher than that. But he's still a great college quarterback, and it's just the Ohio State defense actually is really good now. I don't care what they did early in the season; it's come on tremendously. But I don't think there's a defense in college football that can stop Alabama.
Just a few minutes left here with Dave Cokin from WagerTalk.com and at Dave Cokin on Twitter. Dave, I want to ask you, and really, for me, a lot of it comes down to not a re-handicap of what happened, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened. Was it Ohio State good, or did Clemson just not show up for that game? Because I didn't see a Clemson team that looked anything like the Tiger squads that have played well so far this season. So do we give all the credit to Ohio State, or was some of that Clemson playing lousy?
I think it was mostly Ohio State. Clemson didn't have a great game, but I had Ohio State as the better team going in anyway. And I had a strong play on Ohio State. And did it play out even better than I thought it would? Yes. But I think what happened at Clemson is they knew they were beaten early in the second half. There comes a point where a team just knows the other team is better than they are, particularly in a particular game. And I think Clemson kind of gave up. So I would say that those numbers are a little bit skewed in terms of what happened. But Ohio State was considerably underrated going into that game. They never, ever should have been a touchdown dog in that game. It was a good line as far as the betting market's concerned, because the books did very well on that game. That was one of those games where the books weren't making a prediction on the game. A lot of times the line is actually a prediction on the game. It wasn't in that game because the books recognized the betting market is going to pound Clemson. They made the number higher than it should have been, and they pounded Clemson anyway. That was excellent bookmaking. This game, a little different story. I think this is now a little bit closer to the right number, but I would still say it might be a shade high.
And once again, current line 8, Alabama 8. And by the way, the look-ahead line, guys, bettable look-ahead line offshore the week before the games was going to be Alabama 4.5 over Clemson, 10.5 over Ohio State. After Ohio State looked so good, they opened at 7 in most spots, quickly went to 7.5, 8, back to 7.5, now 8. Total was as high as 76.5 a few days ago. Now it's been holding 75, as Dave said, pretty much across the board. Dave, great to see you as always. Always enjoy doing the baseball show with you. Dave also does the college basketball tip-off show each and every day here, Monday through Friday, with Ralph Michaels and our producer, Joe Ranieri. Dave, tell us something on the way out, what you got going at WagerTalk.com.
Well, I haven't put up anything yet for today. I will shortly, but I do want to point out on the Ohio State-Alabama game, whatever I end up doing will not be sold. It's going to be free. So just visit my page on a regular basis, and once it's up, might still be a couple of days before I post anything, but it will be a free selection or a free opinion at the very least. I'll probably end up betting something on the game, so it'll be a free play. Just kind of my way of saying thanks for what was a great season of support from all of the followers at Wager Talk. Appreciate it.
Well, that's fantastic. If that's not a reason to check Dave Cokin's page at WagerTalk.com every day for the next few days, I'm not sure what is. Once again, Dave Cokin will be putting up the college football championship game for free at WagerTalk.com on his personal page. Dave, thank you. Great to see you as always. We'll catch up soon. And another reason to stay tuned is right after this quick break, we'll be back with Teddy's BBBBB And we'll be right back with that.
So far in 2021, already ranked number 1 and up 50.20% in profit behind a record of 69.4% winners. Right now, you can lock in all of Ace's plays regardless of sport, even 5% big moves through the Super Bowl for less than the cost of a 30-day pass. To take advantage of this offer, just go to WagerTalk.com. Choose Yanni in the experts dropdown and lock him through Super Bowl Sunday.
It's time for a little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. A recap of what happened in the sports betting world last night. And if you were watching NBA last night, there was some insane point spread drama. Bad beats. I mean, yeah, maybe. The Wizards plus 6.5 against Philly. All right. The Wizards are right there. The whole second half, it's tied 131 all at the 4-minute mark. The over, a right side winner in that one. Philly's up 6 now. 30 seconds left after a Ben Simmons make. Line 6.5. Misses the free throw. Still at 6. Beal goes to the rim. He gets stuffed. It's still at 6. And now Washington fouls. No, they didn't foul. Yeah, they did. Tobias Harris gets to the line. Missed them both. And then Beal gets kind of intentionally fouled so that he gets to 60, hits one free throw, and the Wizards lose by only 5. So not 1, not 2, 3 missed free throws from Philly right at the end of that game allows Washington to stay under the number. The Hornets blew a 24-point lead to the Hawks, but Trae Young stunk down the stretch, and Gordon Hayward didn't. The Hornets held on to win. How about the Bulls? 6.5 at Sac, though. They're down 1 with 38 seconds left. But the Kings hit back-to-back threes. Now Sacramento's up 6. Bulls turnover, then foul with 12. They fouled with 12 seconds left, down 6. It looked like the Kings wanted the clock to run out. What happens? Harrison Barnes. He got fouled. He misses them both. And then Zach LaVine hits a 3. The final margin is 4. It could have been 8. Super stressful for Bulls backers. They ended up cashing. Pitt was down 18 yesterday at Syracuse. They were plus 11 for the game. They won outright. Louisville was up 10 with 5 minutes to play. A foul fest final minute, and the Cardinals missed a bunch. Minus 3.5. They only won by 2 versus Virginia Tech. That was a pretty bad beat. When it comes to bad bets, well, they were betting the Pistons yesterday. Plus 13.5 up to plus down to plus 11.5. Ended up losing by 15 versus the Bucks, but and that game almost got into the bad beat category if Milwaukee didn't cover. There was point spread drama at the end. When we're talking about betting the team that lost that first meeting, the markets are really doing that on a day in, day out basis. It's working for teams that are evenly matched. It's not working as well when one of the two teams is a bottom feeder, and that's been a problem for teams like Detroit. Nonetheless, Pistons took the money yesterday. That was a bad bet. The Jazz took the money yesterday, -6 to -8. The Knicks won outright. Utah had a bad couple of days in New York City. And lots of Tennessee money last night. Boy, the Falls defense is strong. Against Arkansas, they won. They did not get the money. That was a bad bet. When it comes to bad for books, well, the Clippers certainly stand out. -1.5 up to -5. They won by 7. A little late point spread drama there. The Clips with 2 bad possessions in the final minute and made things interesting. That certainly all the money came on L.A. And L.A. got the money. Not a good result. But how Arthur Caesar told us yesterday that Michigan was the wise guy special in college hoops. Bet up from -6, as high as -8, even higher in some places. Well, they beat the Gophers by 25. And in the how do they do that category, Boise opened 18.5 against Air Force. They closed 19.5. You know where that game landed. Right on 19. Of a middle, 18.5, 19.5 lands 19. Bookmakers' predictive abilities always can get you. How the heck did they do that? Well, bell curve. We'll talk about that another time. In the meantime, let's get back to Steve Merrill and the rest of Wager Talk Today.
Statistical bell curve. That's my line of talk now, Teddy. Politics, bell curves. We might run all the viewers out, but you and I would have a great time doing this show with those categories. By the way, you know what was not in doubt in that Wizards Sixers game was the over which was like 234. It steamed up 3 points. That was bad for the books. Went from 231 to 234. When you have a 92-point second quarter combined, you're probably in pretty good shape. I saw that score last night. I was like, my goodness, 277 total points, because we had talked about that game on NBA Tip-Off with our show producer here is the host of NBA Tip-Off, Joe Ranieri. And by the way, he'll be back at 1:30 Eastern for college basketball tip-off. You'll see Dave Cokin again. And then at 2:30 Eastern, Joe will be back with NBA Tip-Off. Teddy does it on Tuesdays. I'll be on tomorrow on Friday. Basketball across the board this time of year. We're going to get to some football here in a minute, the NFL playoffs. But first, I want to thank everybody for watching us live here at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, as we are every Monday through Friday. WagerTalk Today live, noon Eastern on WagerTalk TV. And, of course, if you missed the live episode, don't worry. The replay is even better. It gets better with age, like a fine wine, and you can go back and watch the segments over again when you miss something, get those picks. It's archived all the time at WagerTalk TV on YouTube. And leave a comment below when you watch that archive version. It really helps the rankings on YouTube. It helps us make more free shows and better quality content for you. The thumb up, like is great. The subscribe is huge. And when you're watching us live, hey, leave us some comments as well. 2 thumbs up, but you got to click it, Teddy. Those don't count. YouTube might count those. They're watching us nonstop, so they probably do count those. Some of our loyal viewers, Abby Jackson's here each and every day. Great to see you, Abby. Jimmy Braun, Scott Brown's in here. Our Carmen Bianco sighting in the chat, guys, talking some soccer. If we don't get to hockey today, my apologies, but we do have soccer covered. As Carmen is great with that on WagerTalk.com. Nate Dogg, Robert McIntosh, see him a lot around the chats. Nathan Cantor digging deep, asking if anybody likes the over in the Southern Utah game today. My goodness, we've got some knowledgeable sports bettors, to say the least, that follow us here. Adam Lastman is there as well. Star Child making another sighting as he did yesterday. So there's some great loyal viewers here on WagerTalk TV. We love the chat, but once again, comments below when you watch this on YouTube on the archived edition on all shows. NBA Tip-Off, college basketball tip-off, WagerTalk Today on YouTube on WagerTalk TV. Thumbs up, subscribe, leave us some comments. We'll comment back. Teddy, speaking of the NBA, give me an angle on how dogs have done so far this year, because it's something we were talking about before the show.
Well, going into yesterday, dogs were hitting at a 60% clip for the full season in the NBA. And then yesterday, what happened? Washington got the money. Boston got the money. Charlotte won outright. The Knicks won outright. OKC won outright. Chicago got the money. It's been a very strong start to the season for underdog bettors in the NBA. We're still at 60%. And now at 60% dogs betting blindly over a multi-week span, that's significant. We're every team's about 8 games into the season. We're a tenth of the way through the season, and it's been a significant bent towards underdogs. The question is why? And that's an interesting discussion to have. Do you have any theories, Steve Merrill, about why we've seen the dogs do so well?
Yeah, this was actually going to be our lead story, but the politics trumped that, as politics often do. But I had been thinking about this one, Teddy, since you mentioned it last night to me, and I think it makes sense in what I think is going to be a very strange season with uncertainty. When you kind of lean towards the dogs, if that's the case, all things equal. But the other reason, and it's a reason on the NBA preview show I did a few weeks ago here on WagerTalk TV, I gave out unders on the 3 biggest teams, the 3 biggest numbers, Bucks, Lakers, Clippers. I go, you got to look to play these big totals under because of load management, and that they have bigger fish to fry with the playoffs coming up sooner with the shortened season. And then on top of that, they didn't finish until like October for the Lakers, for example. What do you care about the regular season? If you're LeBron, why are you going to go all out here? So I think that also favors the underdogs and maybe, some of the weaker teams. I mean, what is your logic behind it? I think that makes sense. Are there any other reasons that you're looking at, you think, why the dogs have been barking so far? And I guess more importantly, Ted, is will it continue here in 2021? That's what really matters, is will we continue to see the underdog value?
Yeah, exactly. That's it's all good to look back and say, oh yeah, the dogs did great.
Hindsight.
But the goal is to try to be predictive, not reactive, proactive, not reactive, and that's something as a bettor, it's oftentimes hard to do, but it's something that I try to do literally day in, day out. That's one of my thought processes as I'm handicapping the game. Am I reacting, or am I being proactive and trying to get this team before the markets catch up to where they are? When it comes to the NBA, there's two things that absolutely stand out to me. And it's all theory. There's no one's going to be able to say, yes, this is why the NBA has done what it's done this year in early season play, being so strong for underdogs. But one, what's home court worth this year? Not much. I've been using a point, and when I looked at some statistical analysis yesterday, that basically said the home court's worth 0 so far. Not even a half a point. It's been worth 0 in the NBA through the first 3 weeks of the season. So when you don't have crowds, you don't have that home court edge, in theory, the markets are still pricing for that. So that's one piece of the equation, the lack of home courts. The other issue that really stands out to me, and this is more so in, let's say, the NBA or the NHL or MLB than for football. In football, coming into the season, you have a pretty good idea who's going to be good and who's not. In the NBA, the markets are still feeling out and pricing a lot of these teams. You've seen the wild swings in the Golden State Warriors power ratings, the Houston Rockets power ratings. OKC's been bouncing up and down. Chicago's been bouncing up and down. A Knicks team that looked awful for the first week has now played good basketball since. So the market valuations, the market pricing of these teams, it's not set. It's not secure. It's not locked in. And when the markets don't have a proper valuation and pricing of the teams, what happens? Underdogs cash. That's what happens because, the favorites aren't priced right. The dogs aren't priced right. And in general, there's 2 ways you can cash with a dog and only 1 way you can cash with a favorite. The dog can win, the dog can cover, or the favorite has to win by margin. And when, in order to get the money. And when you have mispriced teams early, it makes the 2 ways for the dog to cover that much more likely to come in. Now, will it be predicted moving forward? That's the question. But I'll put it this way, Steve. It's not like on a day in, day out basis, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to bet the NBA and I'm only playing dogs because dogs are cashing. No, that's not how it works for me. But I wouldn't be surprised. In general, I like to bet dogs. And I would not be surprised at all if this current trend, maybe not at 60%, but if we see a month from now, dogs are still cashing at a 55% clip, wouldn't surprise this better at all.
And by the way, we're going to talk a lot of NFL playoffs here in a moment with Ralph Michaels, but Ralph just told me as he's waiting in the wings that dogs of 8 or more are just 8 and 13, 38% right now in the NBA this season. So basically what that means is that smaller dogs have been even better than 60%, maybe as close to 70%. I'd have to see the numbers. And Teddy, that makes sense. I think the home court's an excellent point. That's why I love throwing things back and forth with you. That is something I had thought about but have forgotten about. We talked about it with all the sports. Home court is worth less than ever the last few years. Just in general, it's been diminishing. And now this year without the fans and maybe back-to-backs in the same arena. Ralph brought this up actually on the college tip-off show last week, is that when these teams play back-to-backs 2 nights in a row, you can almost say home court is 0 the second night because the team's already there. They've already played in the arena. Something to keep an eye on in the NBA because teams are playing 2 out of 3 in the same arena, not really having to travel, just sitting in a hotel, which might actually be relaxing for some of these guys. So something we'll keep an eye on.
Sure. And when you talk about, and that's a great stat from Ralph, who I love the fact that he's watching the show and helping us out even when he's not on air. That's awesome. We appreciate it very much. The legend, the pen, Ralph Michaels. But at -8 or higher, all right, those dogs have not done well. And that tells us that when there's a clear differential, you have a good team and a bottom feeder. Those aren't the teams that are being significantly mispriced.
Right.
But the fact that it's the shorter dogs that have been cashing so much, it tells us that the valuations of the teams in the middle are maybe not what they should be. We know who the very bad teams are in the NBA. Although some of the bad teams have played pretty well. Talk about the Knicks. Cleveland got off to a hot start. Charlotte won outright last night. I mean, it's not like we've seen the bottom feeders just crash and burn the way it happens sometimes early in an NBA season. The bad teams just stink. You can make a whole lot of money betting against them right away. Same story early in the NFL. When you bet against bottom feeders in September, that's a positive expectation betting strategy because the markets don't quite value how bad they are. But when it comes to these mid-range prices, the dogs of +7.5 or less, that's where the markets have struggled this year. And that's where there has been legitimate value on the underdogs. And if someone's looking to bet dogs in that range, I certainly wouldn't talk them out of it until it's proven otherwise.
And it goes back, just to kind of close out on this, it goes back to both of our theories. Home court being overvalued, that's a couple points. I think that applies more in closer games. It doesn't matter as much if it's a blowout. And then also, my theory about the top teams, not load management, not caring as much, that also applies, as well. If, a game is going to be close, if there's a little load management, it maybe falls a couple points closer, whereas a blowout's a blowout. I'll tell you what, we're not going to get to Gianni today. He wasn't able to make it. Once again, though, when you have that many nicknames, you're doing something right. As I said, Vegas runner, ace, the Greek. He is number one once again in 2021 at WagerTalk.com. And I wanted to hit some other hot streaks before we get to the break here and then come back with Teddy's big game breakdown. We're going to come back with Ralph Michaels for a lot of NFL playoff talk like we said we would. Las Vegas Chris, so red hot as well in 2021, 21-8, 72%. My basketball side run now 26-9 after a 2-0 sweep last night. Teddy's not far behind, 40-23. 63% NBA run going back to last season, just red hot there. A lot of units won. Marco D'Angelo, who's on Monday, 15-4 now. He was 12-3. He's now 15-4. So he continues to win in 2021. Tony Mejia, who I did the college basketball and the NBA shows with the last couple of days, 19-8 college basketball run. He's on college tip-off all the time. Tony Finn, 15-5. Drew Martin at sportsmemo.com, 15-5. Don't forget about sportsmemo.com, our sister site. And Tokyo Brandon, Far East baseball specialist. Many people have probably not heard of him. He's new to WagerTalk.com. He's on a 59-39 Japanese baseball run, 60%. He's also got some Chinese baseball from what I saw the other night, and that was only $10. So be sure to check out WagerTalk.com for not only football and basketball. Carmen's in the chat. He does soccer. We got baseball, handicappers, Far East handicappers, basketball experts like Ski Profit, who was on yesterday. WagerTalk.com, some red hot cappers, and then our sister site, sportsmemo.com. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, big game breakdown, some NFL talk from Teddy Covers, and then even more NFL talk with our man, Ralph Michaels. We'll be right back.
Right now, you can lock in 30 days of any NBA or college basketball plays, including 5% best bets released from your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper for just $6.63 per day. A 30-day NBA pass is priced at $189 and a 30-day college basketball pass at $189. But you can get both for only $199. To take advantage of this special offer, just go to WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com. Choose your favorite handicapper and lock in all basketball action for the next 30 days. Even better, there's no limit to how many handicappers this offer can be redeemed on. Right now, you can lock in 30 days of any NBA or college basketball plays, including 5% best bets released from your...
There we go. It's time for today's big game breakdown. Time to talk some NFL playoffs. I've been talking hoops all week. Didn't do anyone any favors with college hoops yesterday. I figure we get to some NFL before today. Let's talk the early start Sunday game, regular football time. And that, of course, is the Baltimore Ravens at the Tennessee Titans. Baltimore, 3.5-point road favorite. There are threes popping up now. Total 54.5/55 on that contest. And look, if I'm playing this game, there's only one thing I'm looking at, and that is an over. All right. The Titans can't be stopped, and they can't stop anyone. Dave Sherpin was on, Tuesday? He said, remember Ravens-Browns, what was that, 47-42, one big play after the next. Neither team capable of getting stops. This one feels like the same way. It was 30-24 in the first meeting, only because they settled for field goals. A combined 3 of 9 in the red zone. They still got to 54, despite the fact that, again, only 3 red zone conversions and 9 chances in that ballgame. Now, Baltimore's number 18 in red zone defense. Tennessee's number 30. All right. So normally, when opponents get into the zone or into the red zone against these defenses, they score touchdowns. Didn't happen in the first meeting. I would expect better results in the second meeting. Tennessee ranked number 32 in the NFL on third down defense. They just can't get off the field. It's been their problem all year. And it's why they're not going to the Super Bowl, because this offense is a Super Bowl-worthy offense. Tennessee, number 4 in points scored in the NFL, although it was close, between the number 4 team and the number 1. There's, a touchdown or 2 for the season. But, top 5 in points scored. By far, the Titans have allowed more points than any other playoff team. By far, they have the highest average score of any team in the NFL. Tennessee's an overs as strong an over team as it gets. Baltimore you wouldn't necessarily think that. Obviously, the Ravens are a run-first team, and we think about Baltimore as a solid defensive team. This is different, all right? And the Ravens probably still, they're number 2 in third down defense, compared to Tennessee, number 32. But Baltimore, this is not an elite defense this year. It really isn't. And, you're going up with Lamar Tennessee's offense with Henry and Tannehill playing well and the Davis-Brown combination at receiver. I'm telling you, it's as good as anything you're going to find. Baltimore's offense has been spottier, but Tennessee's defense is weaker, and you have Lamar Jackson with something to prove in this game. Really does. 28-12 in the playoffs last year against the Titans. Jackson had 2 picks. He took 4 sacks. At the end of the game, his statistical profile was fine. He was not good in that contest. This time around, he's facing a team he's lost to a couple times already in the last 2 years. And there's no reason to think that Baltimore won't be able to trade points with the Titans for 60 minutes on Sunday. I like the over when these two teams play. Again, you can get it 54.5 as we speak right now. There you have it. Big game breakdown, an opinion on the NFL for Sunday. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Yeah, Teddy, a couple of things you referenced there that I love using with totals. First of all, the red zone. I had the over in the Ohio State Clemson game last week as my 5% bowl play, and I love the touchdowns. The overs are a lot easier when teams are scoring touchdowns. In that game, I was looking, I think the first 7 scores were all touchdowns. I'm like, wow, 49 points. It was 49 points early. I was like, well, if half of these have been field goals, it'd be a different story. So that's very important. And the other thing, too, is Baltimore has shut down a lot of bad offensive teams this year. But, yeah, like Dave Sharapin said Tuesday, and I've said a few times, that Cleveland Monday night game just sticks in my head. When they faced a good offensive team, neither one of those teams could stop each other when they had to. And that's something I look for as well with offense and defense. I'll tell you something else I look for is Ralph Michaels' stats and trends. And I'm so excited we have a little bonus time with Ralph because we had to run short yesterday and we didn't get his full segment in. He was a pro like always and crammed it in. But, Ralph, we got a little extra time to talk NFL playoff football. What you got for us here today on Thursday?
Teddy, make an old fat man happy. Were you quoting those from the WagerTalk NFL playoff stat guide?
You bet I was.
Thank you.
I found those numbers to be outstanding, Ralph. And considering that it's free, Ralph put it together. You get to 2 pages on every game, and the statistical profiles are worthy of paying attention to. Absolutely, the game, whatever. It's a good product and it's free. Talk about it, Ralph.
Well, again, it's just that I just threw it together. You're going to have the schedule. One thing I like about the schedules I put in there, it gives you the ATS, the over-unders, but it also gives you the quarter-by-quarter scoring. So you could see those coaches that make those halftime adjustments this year. Perhaps that gives you live betting situations. And then basically I took every stat there was, I ranked them, and then I put them up offense versus defense. You talked about Tennessee. Well, if you have a number 2 red zone offense and a number 32 red zone defense, I guess those things sort of slant towards the over. So, again, just take a look, just a bunch of stats, a bunch of numbers, and like you said, it's free. So the worst thing, Teddy, is you waste a minute of your time downloading it, but I'm sure you will find some value with it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take a minute to download. It's a quick download.
I'm gonna jump back in, guys. And, I love watching you. And, why would I come on and watch this show before I'm on in my segment? I'll tell you what. If you're a new bettor, you learn. If you're a novice bettor, you learn. If you're a casual bettor, you learn. If you're a professional bettor, you learn. You guys layer it so well, the way you break down situations and break down details. So kudos to you guys, an incredible job. But talking, just extending the talk about the NBA playoffs, and the dogs, let me just bring up this eye-popping number for you guys. Home teams straight up in the NBA. That's it. Just home teams straight up. Going back to 2010, 59%, 61%, 58%, 59%, 59%, 59%. Do you know what home teams are this year straight up? 48.3%. It is 10% less than any other year in the last decade. So not only dogs, but just home teams, talking about a home court edge, It is under 50% year to date. Home teams 56 and 60, 48.3% against the spread.
Now I have to expect that to regress to the mean a little bit because when you're 10 percentage points off every recent season, even with the differences in 2021, I got to think that at the end of the year we're not going to see these home teams at 48%. Ralph, would you agree?
Oh, yeah, I was flabbergasted, Teddy. I'm just starting to get in the NBA now. I concentrate on college, and once the NBA teams play a few weeks like they are now, I jumped in and I have an NBA angle and my first NBA play. But absolutely, when these good teams start playing later on and they start learning, LeBron, again, going back to my Cleveland days with LeBron, when LeBron wanted to start to play defense and win games, guess what? They played defense and they won games. So those teams that are going to rise to the crop did that. So, hey, my angle of the day is NBA. So, I was just breaking down some NBA numbers, and I went and looked at my Cavs. My Cavs are now 0-5-1 over under. Now, 0-5-1 is fine. You know what? It's a decent number. You've gone under 5 of 6 games. You pushed once. But look at the margin. In those 6 games, the Cavs have gone under by 21 points per game. Why? They ran the ball early with a couple guards. Now, no point guard Garland. They have been a dead under team. You look at the Grizzlies, 4-15 over under at home. No more rant. They've gone 0-3 under their last 3. They've gone under by 15 points per game. So we have 2 teams in regular under situations without their go-to guys to push the tempo, and both have gone under by huge margins. So the angle of the day would lead you to play the Cavs and Grizzlies under the 210 or 209.5.
So if you want to play that under, Ralph, let me jump in because that total's already been pounded down a little bit. We saw it open as high as 212.5, and now I'm seeing pretty much 209s across the board as I look at my WagerTalk live odds screen. But the leading indicator books are saying that this total could go back up again. So if you like the under, pump the brakes for now. You may want to look at it again later in the day because it does look like there's a decent chance this number could go back up as opposed to going further down.
Appreciate that, Teddy. And great advice. Again, actionable information when you think you should bet a game. And it doesn't always come to fruition. But again, when you're listening to experts and they know the key signs and what books do that, that's the type of advice you would listen to. Guys, I want to pick your brains a little bit. I did the stat guide. I also did a coach's guide. And basically I did this. I listed every NFL head coach that's in the playoffs. I have their game-by-game logs, their straight-up records, their ATS records. So I just want to jump through and ask you guys, game by game, take 15 seconds a game. Who has the coaching edge, if anyone? How much the coaching records in the past matter? And did it play into any part of you handicapping this game? Frank Reich, 1-1. He coached the Colts twice in 2018. Sean McDermott, 0-2 straight up. 1-1 ATS, got their 17, got their 19. Coaching edge, guys, Reich or McDermott?
Well, I'm very partisan in this. I went to school with Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin. They're both classmates of mine, and I'll be rooting for both of them pretty hard here, Ralph. But I think it's probably a wash in this one. I think McDermott's better than that 0-2 mark as we've seen this year. Just not enough sample size. What I will say, though, little foreshadowing, McDermott does seem to have Tomlin's number maybe if they get that rematch in the next round.
We're going to, if you take a look at the guys guide, couple points I pulled out. I'm just going to run through these couple points. You can decide if they're relative or not. Pete Carroll, 1-5-1 his last 6 away from home. Sean Payton has actually dropped 4 straight playoff games. He's 1-5 his last 6 ATS at home. Tomlin 1-4 ATS his last 5 as a favorite. Harbaugh 5-0 over his last 5. Pete Carroll 11-5-1 over under. Ron Rivera 5-1 over under his last 6. So take a look at the road, take a look at the home situations, and that is free as well. So you have the WagerTalk NFL Playoff Stat Guide and the Coach's Guide. And Steve, just to give you some forewarning, on Friday, Prez has been the Friends of Ralph play of the day. So I am going to take that honor today, give you one of my plays, But tomorrow, the onus is going to be on you. So I need you to bring it, Guy. I need a big finish to the end of the week. So tomorrow, you will be the Friends of Ralph play of the day, either a Friday night game or a weekend game. So bring your best for us tomorrow. Today, guys, Friends of Ralph play of the day. This is one of my actual client releases today. Game number 763. First half play. I'm going to play him in the first half. UCLA minus a half against Arizona State. They're on the road. 7:30 tip-off. And in this college basketball season, what I've learned is this. There's some teams that have really struggled, surprisingly. Arizona State losing to UTEP, winning by Grand Canyon by a point. Cincinnati's performance the last 6 games, the way Dayton struggled with their short lineup. So, the way Michigan State has struggled. I'm going to not say that Arizona State's all of a sudden become better today. They've been out with COVID the last couple of weeks. We know Cronin has improved that defense at UCLA. We know that pace is going to stymie Arizona State. So because of the COVID layoffs and the lack of practice with Arizona State, I'm going to go first half, game 763, UCLA minus a half point.
And Ralph, I love the first half plays. When I did the college basketball tip-off show with you a few days ago, you had Texas first half. They covered the first half, did not cover the game. It played out like clockwork for you. So once again, viewers, there is some logic when Ralph's using a first half play versus the full game and vice versa. Ralph, thank you as always. You'll be on college tip-off here in about a half hour, 45 minutes here on WagerTalk TV with Joe Ranieri and company. Dave Cokin, who joined us earlier, will be there as well. And then, of course, we'll be back tomorrow, as Ralph said. And now I know I do have to have a play tomorrow. I can't just sit back, kick my feet up on Friday, get ready for the weekend, and watch Teddy start sweating as the show goes, and Joe Ranieri's sweating knowing that they're one day away from the Prez's return next Monday. But until then, guys, we will be back tomorrow on Friday with more Wager Talk Today at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific live here. And, of course, the archive all the time on Wager Talk TV. Teddy, closes out.
Sure. I want to thank Dave Cokin for breaking down the national championship game with us. I want to thank Ralph Michaels for once again providing us with quality information to close out our show. And I want to thank you, our viewing audience, for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us. Enjoy the games. Good luck tonight. We'll be back again in 23 hours right here on Wager Talk Today.
Right now, you can lock in 30 days of any NBA or college basketball plays, including 5% best bets released from your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper for just $6.63 per day. A 30-day NBA pass is priced at $189 and a 30-day college basketball pass at $189. But you can get both for only $199. To take advantage of this special offer, just go to WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, choose your favorite handicapper, and lock in all basketball action for the next 30 days. Even better, there's no limit to how many handicappers this offer can be redeemed on.